Good morning, everybody. 15th of July, Tuesday, here in Minsk, Belarus. And I want to show you things. I'm actually going to be expanding on the little short that I did earlier talking about this announcement by Donald Trump. But let me show you there. We got some wildflowers here. Anyway, very nice, very nice. So let's get right into this. Now, this was quite an announcement that Donald Trump made yesterday. I guess it promised to be. He's got a lot of flack lately about the Epstein things, covering up for all the pedophiles, the criminals, all the super rich people. And you can come up with a few different theories on why he decided not to release the so-called list. What there probably really may never have been any kind of a list, but at least not by Epstein, at least, but you can make a list on all these people that have gone there, and they've already told us for years, that there are thousands of, so how could, if there isn't thousands of video footage about these people, then why did they say there are thousands of videos about these guys having sex? And it's like having sex with young girls. Who knows what the smallest age is? I have no idea. But you know, I've talked about this, and a lot of people have been talking about this stuff. Not really ad nauseum. Donald Trump is trying to say, "Oh, you're still talking about this. Oh." But I guess he needed some sort of a big announcement, some big news to try to block all of this, because Donald Trump has been betraying his base in many, many ways. He's promised a lot of things, and now he's going back on all of that. Terrible, terrible, terrible. More flowers. Interesting fellows. Lots of bees and things around here. Pollinators. Lots of pollinators. I guess in some countries there's a problem with pollinators. We have no problem here. There are still insects, you know. Things get really cold here in the wintertime, and a lot of insects die out, but you know, they all come back, I guess. So okay, let's see. So he was putting out a message. I caught this. I'm so shocked that a lot of people, at least so far what I've been reading, you know, the day after, that people are not talking about something that Donald Trump said. And it's the most shocking thing he said. And it might just be theatrics or something, just to cover up and get people's mind off of Epstein, where some people say he fumbled, he dropped the ball on that, you know, promising all this stuff and doing exactly the opposite, protecting the pedophiles. I put out, I think it was yesterday, saying, well, maybe he's going to use this as leverage against these rich people in some way. I have no idea. And I think it was Tulsi Gabbard putting out that even the media, there are maybe media people involved within this scandal as well. You know, and who was this rapper guy? I think it's a rapper, Diddy or something like that. A bunch of sex stuff there. And it really kind of makes you wonder. Mel Gibson was even hinting at a lot of this stuff, maybe for over a year. He's talking about this craziness in Hollywood. And it's not just Hollywood, it's politics. It's any of these elites. And I've even told you a lot of times in my videos, you know, you're dealing with a lot of, say, rich people, investors. I was in one country, you know, and I did coffee, and because I was growing coffee and producing coffee, you know, a lot of people took notice. A lot of heads of state, presidents, prime ministers, celebrities, and all. I talked to a few of them, or even heard about news from a few of them, and you know, investors talking to me and all that, and I was pretty much shocked on some of the things I heard from a lot of these people. A lot of, as I have already been telling you, a lot of these people, they have some sort of a big sex drive, you know. I mean, maybe all human beings do, but some of these people, and it gets very extreme. And so I don't know, there's a cat over here. Let me see if I can show you this kitty. It looks like something. probably going to run away. Calico. Well, there he goes. She goes. It goes. Whatever. So, anyway. So maybe you can say this big threat against Russia is also part of the Epstein deal. But the real mess, let me say a few little things before. I mean, there's just so much information. I don't even really know where to start. And you know, when I put this stuff out, you guys can tie some of this stuff together in your own way. So, Donald Trump, I guess what was put out here in Russia, what I saw, you know, the day after, I suppose, that Donald Trump is threatening severe tariffs in 50 days, essentially until or unless Putin succumbs to what Donald Trump wants, you know. And Donald Trump is coming out and saying he wants to stop the killing, and that's becomes obviously not true. You know, he might have a little bit of concern for human life, but what about the human lives of all the killing, the mass murder in very short time in Gaza, and most of them are children? He doesn't talk that much about that. He has mentioned a few times that Bibi Netanyahu is able to do what he wants, and every day he's killing at least hundreds of them. At least hundreds. Every single day he's bombing all over the place. He's bombing towns and cities within the Gaza area. You know, and everybody knows what he does. He herds people into safe zone, and then he bombs the safe zone. People lining up to get food, aid. None of them have any kind of weapons. A lot of them are teenage kids or whatever, too young for the Israelis to have killed already in these conflicts. And then he bombs all of them too. As you see, you know, there's children in pools of blood all over the place that were lining up to get aid. You know, more so children than anything else. Anyway, that's just another part. I'm actually here mostly to talk about Donald Trump and some of this crap. I'm tying it all together, you know, so it's not like you can cut some of this stuff out and it has anything to do with making your own short or adding it. But anybody that wants to put this on some other types of videos or something, you're welcome to do that. So anyway, these severe tariffs are nothing. Severe tariffs in 50 days. And of course what he's meaning is secondary tariffs. It's exactly like what his old buddy, his probably maybe one of his best buddies right now, Lindsey Graham is saying. You know, and Lindsey Graham, of course, is very happy. Normally he's happy to start any kind of wars and bombing and killing anybody. You know, he already told us about his delight that Ukraine is killing Russians. He really loved that. You heard Kaya Kallas saying, you know, we have to kill more Russian children. You know, a lot of people, they never talk about this side. They try to say something like, oh, bad Putin, bad Putin. And Donald Trump is the same way. And Donald Trump, he should know the truth, and I think he does know the truth, but this is all just a big act. And if it's an act, which I'm almost positive it is, then he's part of this clique as well. And trust me, he doesn't care about people dying. He doesn't care one bit. You know, these people have been acclimatized to all their dirty deeds and profits, comfortable lifestyle, and so on. So anyway, one thing that Donald Trump said yesterday that really shocked me, and it's not very difficult to read into it. You guys should just watch some of that footage, and when I tell you this, you guys can see this yourself. And I'm like I said, I'm shocked. I am shocked that I haven't seen it yet this morning in the news that I was looking at. So Donald Trump basically he was saying, and this is not an exaggeration. It is not. I don't do that in my videos. You guys know that. I don't come up with this crap, you know. And I like you know, Clayton Morris. But in Redacted, you know, they come up with some title. I guess people tell you to do that to get you to click on your video, and then you get more views and stuff. And I normally don't ever do that. I don't come up with a bunch of stuff like this. But I'll tell you what, Donald Trump, and he talks about anybody who mentions anything nuclear. Oh, look at how bad they are. They use the N-word and all that sort of thing. Donald Trump, he used the N-word. You know, not only that, he went even a little bit further. He basically said, Donald Trump basically said that Russia will surrender to his demands And if they don't, he said, I really don't want to do this. I don't like it. But, he's talking about the nuclear submarines. He said the most powerful weapons on Earth. They are powerful. They certainly are. But of course, Russia has them as well. Russia has far more powerful missiles than the United States does. Donald Trump will never admit to anything like that. Everything that Donald Trump touches, everything he sees, everything that has anything to do with Donald Trump is the greatest that has ever existed. You guys all know that already. But anyway, Russia has powerful weapons as well. And Donald Trump he's threatening that if it comes to it, he's going to be using the nuclear submarines on Russia, basically saying he's going to launch a nuclear strike from submarines on Russia if Russia does not surrender to Donald Trump's will. And I'm urging all of you, I don't know what messages you're hearing from anybody else, but I urge you to go look at a lot of this that was going on yesterday with him talking to the General Secretary of NATO, Rutte, that calls him daddy. And as you know, Donald Trump, he loves the flattery. Everybody's got his number now. You got Benjamin Netanyahu. All you have to do is call him daddy or say he's the greatest that ever existed and get down on, and then Donald Trump, then you have him wrapped around your little finger. Yeah. He said, I hope it never comes to that. I believe I was hearing him saying some kind of an alluding to 5 months, some sort of 5 months, like that Putin has 5 months. Did I miss something here? I don't know. Maybe I had too much of beer or something yesterday. I don't know. Somebody called me one time a middle-aged, thank you very much, I'm not middle-aged, a middle-aged liberal alcoholic. I guess that's what they said. Probably said some other, I didn't even read the rest of it. Probably had a lot more insults in there. A big, long, insulting thing, and I just deleted it. I shouldn't have deleted it. I should have kept that thing. Somebody told me, one of the subscribers here making a comment, that I should have left it up there so everybody could have some laughs. A while ago, when people would put these things up, a lot of people that are regular subscribers, they would start picking the person apart. A lot of even the ladies out there, would defend me. With people coming up. But sometimes it wasn't really so bad. There was somebody from Poland, and I was talking about Poland. Poland, they have a desire, they're imperialistic. A lot of people are talking about that they want the western part of Ukraine. Well, they also want the western part of Belarus. So they want to take that, and that is the main reason why we have tactical nuclear weapons now in Belarus, is to try to keep Poland out of there. And Poland helps these, this Kolonovsky regime or whatever, so does Ukraine, to try to stage a military attack against the government of Belarus. But they're nice guys, Lukashenko, he doesn't have anybody, staging any attacks on Lithuania or Latvia or Poland, but he's a bad guy, So the good guys are the ones that want to overthrow governments and stage military attacks and kill people. What a strange world. That's the very absolute truth. You guys are all seeing this right before your very eyes. Even threatening nuclear strikes by submarines, but those are the good guys, So let me keep going here. Okay. So Donald Trump says, like I said, I heard this thing about 5 months, but in the meantime, Donald Trump's basically saying immediately, he is going to flood. He said, it's like NATO, but you have to realize the USA is part of NATO. They're probably the ones that even started it. So if you flood NATO, and that I don't know if he's saying the EU. Maybe he means the EU, NATO will be paying for all of these weapons, and Donald Trump will happily be giving them virtually everything they want, all of the most devastating weapons, except for nukes, I suppose. They have their own nukes. They have nuclear weapons. Why would they need the US nukes, I guess? And they're a lot closer. I guess they can hit Russia a lot faster. And but he promised them any weapons basically that they want. So we'll see what happens, Peace through strength. What does that mean? That means domination through violence. That's the real meaning of peace through strength. Domination through violence. It's incredible. But you're brainwashed. You're supposed to be brainwashed. So believe me, it's peace through strength. What about a different kind of strength? We used to have something in the old days called a deterrent. And we had all these nuclear weapons, and Russia had nuclear weapons. We never really did come to some kind of a exchange of nuclear weapons, but you know, it's not like that now. Now it's actual bombing, peace through strength, peace through bombing, peace through violence. Which is not peace, domination. And obviously, is Russia attacking anybody except for Ukraine? But then again, who's the one that started that? Who's the one that provoked it all? Who was actually attacking the people in East Ukraine that killed 14,000 of them before Putin actually reacted? And what are the nationalities, or what is the ethnic origin of these people? Oh, they're Russian. You know, they're part of Russia for a long time, for most of their history, hundreds and hundreds of years. Anyway, that's another story. So let's keep going. Okay. But they're going to try on many levels to destroy the Russian economy. And the UK and France, they keep bouncing back and forth. Are they going to send troops over there? Are they not going to send peacekeepers? Or whatever the heck they're going to call them. And Russia apparently it maybe still is, working on a buffer zone, which I don't know about a buffer zone. It's very strange, you know. In truth, a buffer zone would probably mean, let's see, would mean kind of a takeover. Okay. But so the real thing that's going on here is they're really trying to destroy the Russian economy. They actually just want domination over Russia. Of course, Donald Trump does that too. They don't want to make it too subtle. Yeah, it's control through threats of violence, violence itself, economic destruction, killing, or by any means possible. You know, they just don't want to look bad. They don't want to have or lose what they think they believe they have the moral high ground. You know, the West, the United States, and of course Europe. And it's also been found out, it's also been announced now that there never was a pause in delivering weapons to Ukraine. And that's why Donald Trump said, oh, I didn't know about this, I didn't hear about this. You know, Trump is actually very poorly informed, apparently, by his so-called experts, or whoever they are, his informants, and CIA, economic, and everything else. And I believe that's what they did in his first term as well. They kept him uninformed. And looks like they're doing that in multiple ways now. I guess Donald Trump, it seems like he's very easy to be manipulated. So it's incredible. And he only hears what he wants to hear. He believes only what he wants to believe, you know. And now he's got the ear of Lindsey Graham. But I tell you what, maybe it's something a little bit different. Maybe there is some sort of a deal that's been made, and Donald Trump has now completely capitulated. He's right over into the deep state now. He is a big asset of the deep state right now. That seems very, very probable, in my opinion. He's going to do everything that they want him to do. So, anyway. So there was never a pause, really, in the delivery of weapons. It was just fake news. And yesterday he announced that at least, if you listen to his words, he didn't say only, he said basically that there's going to be at least 17 Patriot missile systems and starting to be delivered to Ukraine. And a lot of time he's saying delivered to Europe, which means Ukraine. And everybody knows that means Ukraine, because it's like a middleman. Europe, NATO, I don't know. Europe, NATO is a middleman between the United States and Ukraine. So in other words, it is the United States that is shipping now massive amounts of weapons to Ukraine. And I seem to remember that Donald Trump was at one time criticizing Biden for sending all these weapons. And then, of course, at one time, Donald Trump was bragging that Obama was sending blankets and he was sending javelins. But you know, I guess that's the way through peace, is by giving maniacs and Nazis weapons. And that way you're going to achieve peace. You know, that makes sense, doesn't it? Huh? So, Rutte, you know, that calls him Big Daddy. No, Daddy. You know? A lot of people, obviously, like I just mentioned a few minutes ago, is that Donald Trump is very easy to control with flattery. I mean, I'm not saying you get total control of Donald Trump with flattery, but that is one thing. You have to flatter Donald Trump. And of course, he flatters himself as, you know, the greatest. The greatest. Look at these hands, these beautiful hands, the greatest, most beautiful hands in the world. I don't know. So, what else? So, flattery will get you anywhere, I guess, is an indication of what we know about Donald Trump now. But Trump has been putting out multiple times. He's been saying it in many of these days. And this, I guess, is just to warm us up. He's been warming us up through the press by saying he's not happy with Putin, you know, and then he finally told us what that means. And this is where the propaganda comes in. He had to warm us up because he believes, I guess, or maybe he's been trained to know how propaganda works. So he'll warm us up and hint at us. You know, I mean, if you're kind of stupid and naive, and I think most anybody that is a regular subscriber or watcher to my channel, you're not stupid and naive. And Donald Trump, he's obviously does that. Donald Trump, he pees on your head and he tells you it's raining. And he did that with the Epstein thing. He's doing it again. I don't know, what is he? He's pissing in your face and telling you it's rain. I don't know. I find it, to be honest with you, disgusting. Just disgusting that's why I guess I use that analogy about, you know, pissing on the face or something like that. So let's see. So how did he do this, Donald Trump? He said he was having these recent telephone conversations with Vladimir Putin, and, you know, they were nice conversations. They were beautiful conversations. Oh, it was beautiful. Oh, it was good. I don't know what he says. Zelensky is actually using that language too now when he talks about Trump. Oh, it was a good conversation. But anyway, he says then Donald Trump would, in the evenings, bomb Kiev. But, you know, so what does this mean? What is a good conversation? What does Donald Trump mean by a good conversation? Do you think, except for that one time, do you think that that Vladimir Putin has said, oh, okay, we're going to stop doing any bombings. We're just going to have a ceasefire, an undeclared ceasefire, and just not? There was that one time when it did happen. And Donald Trump, you know, I don't think he even made that much mention of it as far as the Russian side. But Vladimir Putin did have a ceasefire because he talked with Donald Trump about it. And I guess he promised that in that one conversation. Maybe Donald Trump, he's having a Biden period, or he's turned into a Biden brain guy. Bidenitis, I guess, is what it's all about. I don't know. But anyway, he had that one time, and Vladimir Putin, he did ceasefire, even though Ukraine never stopped. Ukraine kept bombing places. They were bombing a lot of these oil transfer places, and some of them belonged to or at least were heavily invested by the United States, you know, like, I don't know, with Chevron or whoever. And it was actually semi-deep into Russia, and Ukraine was bombing these places and destroying them, you know, so the oil couldn't go further. And I think the majority of the money that was being made from these places was probably American companies. And there was a ceasefire, and Putin still he was not attacking, he was not bombing. And I don't know if there was no bombing. Maybe there was some things, I have no idea, that was going on based on, you know, retaliatory things or protective fire, if you know how that works, I suppose. Let's see. And Donald Trump, he said, oh, these great conversations. Well, what was in these conversations? Donald Trump, he didn't tell us. He said, oh, I'd have a great conversation, and in the evening, but did he, tell us what was in the conversation? Did Putin say, oh, he's going to ceasefire? And Russia has been saying all along, they are not going to use a ceasefire. Ukraine uses the ceasefires. I mean, if it is a scheduled ceasefire like the Minsk Accords were, Europe and the United States, very much so included, they flood Ukraine with the weapons. And what will happen if there was a ceasefire? Ukraine would be moving their forces and sending more, you know, they would be free to just be resupplying everything, you know, exchanging their troops and all that sort of thing. And it would basically prolong the war even more. They would just, I don't know, what is that word? Replenish all their supplies, send, you know, huge amounts of supplies, ammunition, you know, to just prolong the war even more. So Putin never, ever said, except for that one time, that he would do a ceasefire. And Donald Trump is fooling you. He's pissing on your head and telling you it's raining by telling you, or making you think beyond any shadow of a doubt, that Putin was saying, okay, I agree to a ceasefire. And Putin never said that. It's put out in the news every single day. They are not going to go with a ceasefire. They will go only for an end to the war. That is the only thing they want to negotiate. There will be no ceasefire. Russia has been saying that. So Donald Trump is trying to tell you that Vladimir Putin is lying to him in telephone conversations. And I think Donald Trump, I mean, you would think if his brain really is working, that he very much knows that. And that is a big, strong indication to me that he's working for the deep state big time now. He's completely over. He's went to the dark side. I don't know. I have no idea. Donald Trump is so infatuated with the idea that he should get a peace prize, a Nobel Peace Prize, that he's doing a bunch of this crazy stuff. I mean, in coming out, Donald Trump, it's undeniable fact that he lies. You know, Donald Trump is a friggin' liar, and there's no denying that. You know, I think virtually anybody in politics in the West, maybe even a little bit here in the East, lie. They lie a little bit, I believe. Maybe they lie unintentionally over here, but over there they intentionally lie to you. Donald Trump, I don't know, he's already been caught. It's not like Ariel Sharon. Benjamin Netanyahu, who openly lies to you right to your face many, many times. You know, but Donald Trump also came out and said that Putin tricked, starting with Bush maybe, and Obama and Clinton, I guess, I don't know, that he tricked them all, but he didn't fool me, you know. And it's like, well, how did Putin fool them? Oh, is it when they had the Olympics back in 2008, and George Bush was being buddy-buddy with Putin, but at the same time, he arranged to have troops sent into South Ossetia, and I wondered, how many people did they kill? Within one day, they were going in, the troops from Georgia through Saakashvili, you know, a United States puppet leader, educated at Yale, same place as George Bush, and he went in, and they were killing the people. They were machine gunning through the windows of all the houses. When people went into the basements to get away, you know, for cover, they threw grenades in the basement. And I don't know, what did they kill? I don't know, maybe that was also 13,000, but they killed thousands of people. There was even Americans. They went on, that were there at that time, and they even went on Fox News, but they did not. They said they would not go on Fox News unless it was live. And then it was live, and then they kept trying to cut them off and went to commercial break because they were telling you exactly what was going on. It was some lady, or it was a girl and her aunt. And they were telling you exactly what was really going on. And I just said it. Machine gunning through the windows and then throwing grenades in there. Oh, no. Oh, blah, blah. And they were, matter of fact, they had drones. They had drone tanks in those days. And a lot of this stuff that was supplied to Saakashvili, it was some of the highest, most technical weapons from Israel and the United States. And Russia realized, I guess, at that time that they had their military had deteriorated so badly that they needed an upgrade. And then they started upgrading at that time. And what really kicked this thing off back then is those the Georgia peacekeepers. You see, there was like as disputed boundaries and things like that. There were Georgia peacekeepers and Russian peacekeepers. Well, the Georgia peacekeepers literally, they stabbed the Russian peacekeepers in the back. They killed them, and then they invaded South Ossetia, Georgia. Basically, a proxy war of the United States. And everybody knows that. I mean, how many proxy wars do you need? Oh, no, but the U.S. uses proxies so that they can keep their hands clean and have the moral high ground and say, oh, we have nothing to do with this. Same thing that's going on probably in Armenia, undeniably in Armenia. The United States has been messing in Armenia for quite some time now. And the number one institution is the church, is the Christian church there. And it's not tied to the Russian church, by the way. Like there was a tie with the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. And Poroshenko, and even escalated by Zelensky, they took the church. And anyway, but it's a little bit different. Some things are different, some things are the same about what's going on in Armenia. So anyway, they're destroying the church. Probably the oldest Christian society on planet Earth are the Armenians. And as I was saying in another thing, the parents of Jesus were from an Armenian tribe. So in other words, that's and the oldest, I think it's the oldest monastery, the oldest Christian society in the world. And yeah, they're overthrowing it to the United States. I was even putting out, and I've even told this many times, this goes way back even to the Syrian conflict, that for some reason, and it might even be George Soros, because George Soros is not a Jew. George Soros is an atheist. George Soros, he started rising to prominence as a young boy when he was turning the Jews into the Nazis. So he worked for the Nazis back in World War II as he was a young child. Some of these people looking at me here, I guess they're really fascinated on what I'm doing. Maybe hearing English. There's old people here. The guy's not too interested, but she is. She gonna go come and look at green apples that are not ripe yet? Oh, here we go. Я говорю только немного по-русски, я говорю английский или немецкий. So, what? Торговый центр?
Нет, вот идет трасса. В этих домах тут можно жить, форточку можно открыть?
Oh, whatever. Okay.
Нельзя,
Не понимаю.
потому что шумит.
Okay. Because of what? Something or other. I don't know what she said. Huh? She's probably telling me to get off the grass. I don't know if people are going to give me orders. They're not like in charge of this. Maybe they're telling me not to go walk. I'm thinking that must be what she is. She's telling me not to walk on the grass. I'll tell you what, lady. Don't be wearing a path right here. You should not be walking on this path. You should be walking on the sidewalks, instead of wearing a path here where there's not supposed to be a path. I don't know. Everybody believes that they have a big moral authority. They're moral and you're immoral, and they can order you around and tell you what to do and what not to do. I don't know exactly what she's saying, but that's probably what she's saying. A lot of people, as you know, I guess they get a big kick. Donald Trump maybe also. A big kick on trying to tell you what you can and cannot do, and that they're better than you, and I don't know. But let's keep going. What am I gutting out here? Let's see. And even by the way, in a short while when the more sun comes up, this grass is going to be standing up again anyway. So I don't know what she's talking about. They're not mowing here. They're mowing way over on the other side. Anyway, maybe she's telling me to watch out for dog crap. People probably let their dogs go here. I don't know. Okay. Yes, I was already talking about this. So Donald Trump using these propaganda manipulation techniques on the people. So maybe, I don't know, did he take some training? But you can see this. Maybe he's just not as good, or maybe it's very obvious that he's doing this sort of thing. I don't know. Who's better, Zelensky, Donald Trump, or some of these other people? Maybe this get some lessons from the media. I notice Elon Musk, he's really not that good. Elon Musk he's just a smart guy, and a lot of stuff that he says makes sense. So, and his party, it's not going to work, of course. He needs to get a little bit serious. I don't know if a third party will ever work, like Ron Paul says. Well, we'll see here. But anyway, Donald Trump using, I guess it's a form of projection. So he's talking about Putin trying to trick everybody, when but in fact, all of them, the presidents, they've been tricking Putin. They've been tricking Putin all along. Remember, not 1 inch. They're not going to expand NATO, not 1 inch more to the east. So I don't know who was president that said that. It was James Baker. I guess that was George Bush #1. But these people, they just keep coming up over and over. Bill Clinton said, they're not going to expand. And then who was it? Yeltsin said, you said you're not going to expand. I guess this is well known. And Clinton, I don't know, did he actually come right out and admit, well, I lied? The United States, like I'm saying, Trump lies, they all lie, particularly presidents of the United States. You think, they're the most powerful person in the world. You shouldn't need to lie if you're the most powerful person in the world. And Donald Trump is lying all the time. I mean, it's incredible. He's pissing on your head and telling you it's raining. I mean, that's seems to be an analogy of Donald Trump now. But I thought somebody was pissing on him in Moscow. Well, that's a lie anyway. I guess that's inconceivable. You know, what was it, PP-gate or whatever? That somehow he's a Russian agent, and that he went in somewhere in Moscow and some prostitutes were peeing on Donald Trump. You know, and that was the whole thing about that and the person. That was Chris Steele, I think was his name, a MI6 agent. He admitted he made it all up, but anyway. But right now it's not being made up. Donald Trump is pissing on your head, everybody. Maybe in your face. But sometimes they call that manipulation technique mirroring. So I guess maybe projection, mirroring, gaslighting, the spaghetti effect, all that sort of stuff. You know, spaghetti effect. Donald Trump, he tries to be a one-man team on spaghetti effect. You know, you're still talking about this Epstein stuff, you know, when it was only 1 day old. You're still talking about that? It's incredible. But the spaghetti effect is normally like like getting everybody over and over and over. It's I guess what the analogy is that you and I took a, what is it called, home economics class in the United States. You know, one time we cooked spaghetti, and you know, I had some friends in there and all that, and some girls I used to like to make them laugh or whatever like that. So you get some spaghetti, and it's, you know, if you overcook it just slightly, you know, it's kind of sticky, you know, and you can throw it in the air. Sometimes it lands in somebody's hair. Ooh, that's not good. Trying to get overcooked spaghetti out of your hair is a really, you know, nobody knew where it came from. The girls that I was with, they were laughing their heads off, and I guess they figured out then where it came from. You know, I couldn't play dumb. But anyway, that's the spaghetti effect. Is normally you take that kind of sticky spaghetti and you throw it up against the wall, and some of it is going to stick. In my case, the overcooked spaghetti, all of it would stick. But anyway, Donald Trump, he's trying that. He's trying to overload everybody with, are you still talking about Epstein? And he's trying to get all his buddies to go along with it. And everybody, oh man, come on. Patel and Pam Bondi, you know, and the Jedi mind melt. There is no list. There is no list. I don't know. Anyhow, there is maybe no list per se, but they have a lot of names of people that were there doing that sort of thing. And they've all admitted for many, many years that there are videos. You know, I guess we're only allowed to see the Hunter Biden videos to a certain extent, where he's polishing his rod there with some Chinese prostitute and all that sort of stuff. Some of the stuff he loved to film himself. Hunter Biden, upstanding citizen, great guy, doing drugs, 10% for the big guy, for his daddy. Anyway, let's see. And, you know, Donald Trump, you know, talking about like everybody cheating the United States, when in fact he is actually going around cheating the United States. He's using the United States as a big cheating tool. You know, the United States has these tremendous advantages over everybody else, as you know, with the world's reserve currency. And I'll tell you what, if they're overcharging the United States basically, what did they do? They just keep printing friggin' more money. They just have to turn on a switch. It's not backed by anything. So what should Donald Trump really even care? You know? Because it's just a friggin' game. They just can print more and more money. You know? And it's valueless. And a lot of people are getting sick of it. Then they're weaponizing the dollar like you would never believe. You know, it's really strange, you know? Weaponize something that's a worthless piece of paper. Absolutely masterful how you can possibly do that sort of thing. Okay. So, wow. So I talked already about the tricking but they didn't trick Trump, they said, you know. And all of these people, and they trick Putin over and over. They don't, not only do they trick Putin, they trick Iran. Look at Donald Trump, the same guy negotiating with Iran to their face, and then bombing them, you know, secretly, you know, having these plans and trying to bomb the crap out of Iran while they're negotiating with them, you know. So, oh no, but he's an honest broker, I guess, you know. And remember when Putin was at the Olympics, George Bush again, like I said, they started attacking then through South Ossetia, and I guess Putin had the finger wave. You know, he was going like this to George Bush, like, you know, here they are, like talking as friends in the Olympics back in 2008 in China, and Putin had to cut it short. I think he just got there, maybe less than a day, and he had to leave because George Bush had arranged to get Russia attacked by it's a disputed kind of area, South Ossetia. Most everybody there is Russian. Matter of fact, I think all of them are Russian. And so Putin had to react to that, send the troops in. Wow. Yeah, and Trump says he's make friends with Russia. When he's talking about being friends with Russia, that's when he started sending javelins, and he's bragging that Obama was sending blankets and he sends javelins. So, incredible. And then he puts the sanctions on Nord Stream. The Nord Stream, did that have something to do with the military? Absolutely not. It's all economic, purely economic. And that's an arrangement supposedly between Germany and Russia. And the United States, basically, as you see, they mess and they meddle in everybody's business everywhere. It's just like what's going on in Brazil. I already talked about that. They're putting this Bolsonaro on trial, and he's not even gone to trial yet, going on trial. So then Donald Trump says he's going to put, 50% or I think 50% tariffs on Brazil because Bolsonaro is going on trial in Brazil. And it's just like Joe Biden, when he was vice president under Obama, he decided that he wants the prosecutor general, or whatever his title was, in Ukraine to be fired. And then he goes bragging and laughing about it afterwards. It's kind of like Israel. Israel controls a lot of what goes on in the United States, and they sit around and laugh about it. Gosh, what a world. What independence. Who has the big power, The superpower of influence is pretty much Israel. And because they influence the big influencer, which is the United States, trying to piece all this stuff together. It's kind of interesting. But anyway, you guys know what I'm getting at on that one there too. So, well, what's the conclusion of all of this? I'll tell you what, the conclusion is, and it's undeniable, and I said like I was studying history, and I told you guys before, I was in military intelligence, and a lot of these other people, you see there's a lot of former CIA people. You got Larry Johnson, Ray McGovern, and Kiraku. Well, there's quite a few. These guys were in civilian military intelligence, and I was not any kind of an operative in military intelligence, but I worked in that area. I was in a military intelligence battalion right on the border of Russia, and we intercepted signals and things like that. Mostly we had like special operations types of peoples, and getting like training to covertly like spy on the enemies, and then type it in through a little DMDG thing, I believe is what it's called, and it goes up to a satellite, and it's beamed down to pretty much anywhere on Earth, and they get the signals on how many troops they have, what their maneuvers and all that sort of stuff. Heavy camouflage, lots of water, carrying a lot of that stuff. Very physical sort of a thing. And then, but that's kind of what that was all about. I learned a lot more in like a military intelligence things when I used to work for the commanding general in Heidelberg, the SINK, the 4-star general. And like I said, I got to meet a lot of people. I ate dinner sitting right next to Ronald Reagan at one time. I got a lot of letters, and one day I will show them. But I said, I'm waiting for these friggin' builders to put up my bookshelf, and then I can find some of my papers. Some of my things were stolen from me when I was kind of homeless kind of guy at one time, but I got a lot of these other things. They took my birth certificate, strangely enough, but I guess that's something that's got some value. But they didn't take a lot of my letters and signed autographed pictures of politicians and generals and things like that, and but I'll show them to you some time. Anyway, thank you letters and things. But anyhow, I learned a lot more when I was working there than I did in a military intelligence place. And sometimes you talk with the generals. Sometimes it's just me and a general. Say, like in one case, and I shouldn't even say this. Somebody in charge of some of the most devastating missiles that the United States has on planet Earth, and he told me a few things. Very nice guy. And then sometimes you get the top people of intelligence departments, not the CIA and not the, maybe it was the NSA, but I don't know, some very top people, you know, got along very well with them. They seemed really nice people and all that. But, you know, and you hear about some of the devastated, I was not interested in politics at that time so much. So I didn't even know who a lot of these people are. Maybe I can look that up. And I didn't get thank you letters from all of them. I got some like gifts from maybe 4 generals, and then I got some letters, maybe about 10 different generals, and then sometimes some influential colonels and things like that, and some civilian people like Jack Kemp, who was running for president and then vice president under Robert Dole against Clinton and Gore. And some of those days, I liked Jack Kemp, and made a friendship with more so with his wife than with him, because I took her on tour around, and she paid for dinner, and had asparagus. But anyway, a bunch of stuff like that. But what I am trying to say that, and then a lot of my history training, that I learned at the University of Washington, I came through some amazing things, and finding out that there's been a war against Russia for hundreds of years. So it's been a goal to destroy Russia for a long time. And I've mentioned that in other videos. So if any of you are new, you're going to have to watch those videos. But that's about it. I'm going to end this video right now. And I might have some new people. If you're new, yeah, go ahead and push the subscribe button and give a like and all that. And thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.